Today's video is sadly inspired by this video on the screen. Before you watch this video, watch mine's first. It will prepare you for what you are about to witness. If you are able to get through this preview, then hopefully you'll be able to get through the actual video, or should I say documentary. You will be seeing images due to copyright and hearing the audio. I don't know if you'll be able to see Australia the same after you find out about how the Aboriginal people are treated. You have made it this far in the video. Even if the video is officially starting right now, thank you so much for staying for everything I had to say at the beginning. Now, I'm going to read the comment that I left underneath the video because of how that whole thing made me feel. So here goes. I will help to spread and expose this. I have no positive words for what I am seeing in this documentary. It brought me to tears. Things like this shouldn't be happening to anyone with black/brown skin. Time to expose. And like the ending of this little comment right here, it really is time to expose. Intro. Hey, it's Jaliane, rhymes with Alien. Like if you're a fan, comment and subscribe. Hello, my name is Jaliane, and today we will be discussing this thing on the screen. But by discussing, you already know what I mean. You're gonna see the pictures and the audio and all that stuff. We already talked about this in the beginning as to why I can't show the official footage and whatnot. But let's get right into these clips because you might as well hear them and see the pictures for yourself, because hopefully it doesn't leave a stain on how you feel about Australia, but if it does, I do not blame you. Okay, let's roll these clips right now. Let's roll the audio, or let's go. Whichever one works, okay.
In 1838, the Sydney Monitor reported, it was resolved to exterminate the whole race of blacks in that quarter. And this is how many of the survivors live today. This is Eric Alkedra, who works at the health centre in the Aboriginal community of Umbludawatch.
Yeah, I moved in here last year. Other families living in one house, maybe 20 in one house, or 15 in another. Some living outside.
Do you have a kitchen in your house?
Nah.
No kitchen?
Yeah, I have to make a fire outside.
Yeah.
You got a fire there, wood outside.
No electricity?
No electricity, yeah. No.
You got water?
Yeah, I used to tap out here.
And you don't have a shower or anything like that?
No shower.
So it's just that one outside tap?
Yeah.
So to wash the kids, they got to stand under the tap?
Yeah, get a hose.
You hose the kids?
Yeah, hose, put a hose up.
Oh. Shouldn't be like this, should it?
No.
It's a rich country.
Yeah, it's rich.
For some. You have a right to certain things. You're paying your tax.
Yeah, I'm paying my tax. But I'm living in a tin shed.
Here you are living with your family here, without a kitchen, tap outside, no electricity. Just over there, there's what they call a government business manager.
Yeah.
And he's got 18 air conditioners.
Yeah, he should have given me one then. Yeah.
David and his team from the Aboriginal Health Service do their best helping to care for communities across the vastness of Utopia and beyond. People live here because this has been their homeland for thousands of years, their spiritual and physical home. And yet they are denied the basic facilities that white Australia regards as their right and takes for granted.
We're meant to be doing primary health care when really we haven't got the basic needs of a human being under wraps yet. you know, which is sanitation, water, shelter. They're out here. They've got we don't have public transport, so if you don't have a car, you're trapped out here, so that's impacting as well. There's no bush bus service. The essence of us sharing this planet together and having some equality of life. These toilets being blocked, of course, that's going to have a mass flow-on effect, you know, by cross-contamination with hand washing just in general, you know. And if you haven't got water and you haven't got light, well, what's going on? This toilet here is obviously a going concern of what's been happening here at, you know, at Anunganapa. We can tell that we don't have a functioning toilet. You would think there would be a basin in here so that kids can wash their hands. We've got a mirror so they can check that their eyes, trachoma, you know. We've got ongoing issues, cross-contamination of gastroenteritis, just so many numerous things that this can create. I mean, where do I stop? It's, you know, these are compacting, let alone on the diabetic and the chronic diseases. We know that there's a major problem with diabetes. We know there's a major problem with renal and coronary disease. But what we haven't started addressing is the impacts that low quality housing and poor maintenance and sanitary practice is impacting on in Aboriginal lives.
All this needs
revamping, yeah.
It needs pulling down and building again.
Well, it's not a refurbishment, is it?
No.
I can't believe that I'm actually in one of the richest countries in the world, and you have people, Aboriginal communities here who are living in conditions which are really almost inhuman.
Aboriginal people are frequently blamed for their poverty, while Australians pretend that governments have tried to invest in these intransigent communities and never got any result. The truth is something else entirely. Governments do not invest in remote Aboriginal communities because if governments do, they know they won't be in government very much longer.
I think it's quite shocking that you can have this level of poverty and this level of lack of basic facilities in one of the richest countries in the world. Australia can easily resolve the problems here. If you take the Utopia community, which is where we are, the homelands here, the total population is only 1,400. If you take the Aboriginal community in the Northern Territories as a whole, you're not talking about more than 50,000 people or so. So to suggest that, you know, after decades we can't solve this problem in a country which is absolutely not short of resources means that the problem is somewhere else.
The fact remains that we've never left this country. We have never ceded any part of our country or signed that over to any other foreign settlers. That's Australian. We've never done that. None of our people have ever agreed to say, righto, you can take my country, but in exchange for that, I want some welfare funds. Our people have never been aware of such a transaction. What amazes me is there is not the hatred, because that's beneath our dignity to hate people. We have not got that. We have not got that anger. But as all people have to start thinking about righting the wrong, the awful wrong that continues to happen to us and ours.
Western Australia is a state of imprisonment for black Australians. On Australia Day 2008, an Aboriginal man called Mr. Ward died a terrible death as he was driven 300 miles in this prison van in blazing heat. The temperature in the mobile cell reached 56 degrees centigrade. The coroner called it a disgrace. The Director of Public Prosecutions took 2 years before deciding to do nothing. Eventually, the van drivers, their employers, and the Prisons Department were fined for a breach of health and safety regulations.
That is what they're doing, John. They are racking and stacking. They've just built the 14th prison, adult prison, and they've lauded it. It's been applauded by a lot of people. It's up in Derby, and it's an Aboriginal prison.
So it's going to be mostly Aboriginal?
No, it's going to be all Aboriginal, from less than 3% of the population.
This man had committed no crime. He was drunk and seriously ill. The police call this protective custody.
My nephew was taken into custody, I think it's on the 3rd of January. You know, the police have this sort of thing where they can grab people off the street who they believe need protection.
The quicker you get up there, the quicker you get arrested. Get out.
You know, they took him into the lockup for protective custody. And the only person he needed protecting from was them.
Aged 27, this man is dying in his cell, alone and helpless. His name was Mr. Briscoe. He died from intoxication, asphyxia, and his treatment by the police, who ignored cries to help him. The coroner said they could have saved his life. No one was prosecuted.
He was just left in his cell to die while police officers surfed the net.
Here where we are in the Northern Territory, the rate of incarceration was 6 times that of the incarceration of black people during the last 10 years of apartheid in South Africa. In Western Australia, it's apparently 8 times more. Do you think Australia should be regarded as an apartheid state?
I don't think it's a lot different, apart from the fact that there aren't signs everywhere saying, you know, black people drink from this tap and white people drink from that tap. In Alice Springs alone, you would have to be blind not to see apartheid here.
In 1981, Eddie Murray died in police custody in the New South Wales town of Wee Waa. In spite of evidence of police lying and cover-up, no one was prosecuted. The people of Mutijulu are the custodians of the rock. Their overcrowded houses are riddled with asbestos, which causes cancer. Since 2008, the government has built fewer than 1,000 new houses for Aboriginal people in the Northern Territory.
This is my daughter's house, Mary. She lives here with extended family group. And 32 people are now living in this one
32
house.
people.
See, the community condemned that house there because the asbestos was all broken.
Yeah.
And it was painted over, it was broken, so it's going to cause health problems in the future.
And so you've had a lot of that pressure, haven't you?
Yes.
Of people having to move from condemned houses into houses like this one. So they've done audits of all of Mutijulu, the whole community. They found asbestos in 70% of the buildings.
Yeah.
They've identified it like this,
Yes.
and yet they've allowed people to go on living in it.
Yes, because obviously we've got nowhere else to live.
So there's 20 people living in a house with one toilet, and every time more people come to stay, the sewer floods. You know, there's raw sewage in the backyard. So you're talking about strongyloides. Sometimes I wonder if I should be testing people for cholera. I'm looking out for it.
Has this house had any money at all from the Housing Authority to renovate it?
We've got not 1 cent to repair our houses. The repairs what we do here, we go to the local rubbish dump and we recycle whatever we can. That's the way that we have to survive here.
There was a report by the Indigenous Doctors Association that mentioned the incidence and degree of malnutrition, starvation.
Oh, absolutely. Malnourished children, people who are overweight, who are still malnourished because they're living basically on flour, and meat, which is subsidised by the council here. Some of the money that comes to the community through the tourism venture is used to subsidise the cost of meat so people get enough protein. But they don't get enough vitamins because they don't get fruit and vegetables because they're too expensive.
A government job scheme that employed thousands in remote areas was all but eliminated. Benefits and pensions were restricted, and people could only buy essentials with a special basics card. Only black citizens were treated this way. As people's incomes were quarantined, starvation was reported. The government's own review committee found what it called a collective despair among Aboriginal people. The rate of self-harm and attempted suicide quadrupled.
We're lost.
The importance of the propaganda by the television programs was to create a situation in which the government could act to control those communities.
You put up pretty provocative signs in these prescribed Aboriginal areas. Would you put up the same signs here on the Gold Coast in Queensland? Would you put those signs up in places where there is child abuse? Middle class Australia, working class Australia, white Australia?
It's a really good question, because what you're actually pointing to is that we should not discriminate about colour, but we should be actually protecting children, regardless of where they are.
Yes. Known as the bungalow, this is where many children were taken from the 1920s to the 1950s, where they were easy prey for sexual predators. Australia's darkest secret is that rape and sexual exploitation were used by whites against black women and children.
It was not an apology on the murder, the rapes, the poisoning and everything of Aboriginal Australia, or the First Nations as people prefer to be known now. It was an apology for stealing so many of our kids with the same intention of assimilating them and making sure there is no continuity of Aboriginal traditional practices in Australia.
The report revealed that in 1 year, the government spent almost $80 million on surveillance and removing children, compared with just $500,000 on supporting these impoverished families. So $80 million a year in actually what is called child protection, but these are the people who take children away.
That's right.
Take children away on the assumption that there is child abuse across the Aboriginal community. In fact, your report shows that the Northern Territory, where the government aimed its guns and described, as the Minister did, child abuse in unthinkable numbers, is among the lowest in Australia.
That's correct.
Aboriginal people once more had their expectations raised, but what followed was treachery. That's the constant pattern of black and white relations in Australia. Raise the expectation and then betray that trust with treachery.
In other Western countries, Indigenous people still suffer. But unlike Australia, historical treaties have been signed that begin to recognise their right to self-determination. Australia is the only developed country repeatedly condemned for the abuse of its Indigenous people. Now and then Australian governments talk of reconciliation, an acceptable idea that hasn't built decent homes or got rid of blindness in children and malnutrition and Dickensian diseases. It hasn't stopped young people suiciding, and it hasn't stopped a land grab that began more than 2 centuries ago. Like apartheid South Africa, reconciliation is not possible without justice, and this will only happen when the first Australians are offered a genuine treaty that shares this rich country, its land, its resources and opportunities. The benefit then will be mutual. For until we give back their nationhood, we can never claim our own.
You have honestly been through enough for today, but let's just get through these comments and then you can go to the actual video and check it out if you need to, or you could take this video as everything you need it to be. But either way, this video does not give you every single thing, but it gives you the most important things in here. There are certain things I didn't talk about because the government in Australia allegedly said certain things that weren't true about the Aboriginals, and I will not be putting it in this video because that really upset me. But let's get into these comments. As an African and Kenyan, my heart bleeds for the Aboriginals. This is pure slavery in a first world like Australia. Is it really a first world at this point? Is it really a first world country if this is what's going on? Like, I don't know what to say. As an African, I'm extremely saddened and offended on behalf of the Aboriginal people for the pain and suffering they continue to go through because of greedy racist, You could continue to read more if you're going over there. If not, you have all you need. It's so difficult to love a group of people whose history is a trail of evil they're unwilling to acknowledge and fix. No to xenophobia. Can you imagine being a displaced/refugee in your own country? Shameful. It really is. This is so heartbreaking. As a South African, we experienced this apartheid, okay? But for the life of me, not in the 21st century, not in wealthy Australia. Lord Jesus, please intervene. Justice is yours. This is beyond words. I thought the US's historical treatment of Native and Black Americans was beyond reprehensible, but Australia has managed to top them 100-fold. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. It seems that a lot of white people are a pure malignancy of evil on this earth. They either have caused or are causing atrocities, or they're benefiting from them. Bless the Aborigines. This is just, it's sad. This was difficult to watch. It's gonna be difficult for people that are here too to go and watch it. I'm being honest. I knew Australia had a dark history, but had no idea it was this dark. I'm amazed this country has done so well at sweeping it all under the rug. We need more documentaries like this to highlight this injustice. We sure do. That's why, to be honest with you, the preview is happening because of this. That's why I'm doing this little sneak peek so people could actually go over there and watch the full documentary and see everything. But over here, we're just giving you a little sprinkle on top of your coffee or your tea, or we put in some sugar in whatever you want it to be, in your bagel, your coffee, your juice, I don't know, but either way, it's a lot. And the last comment. I live in Australia and I'm disgusted by my own country. I admit that the history of Australian treatment of Aboriginal peoples is despicable. I've been a part of the Close the Gap campaign in the past and don't celebrate Australia Day, as you should, in quiet and personal protest against our treatment of Aboriginals, but I had no idea that the standard of living was as bad as what I saw in this docu. Or docu, I usually say docu. I'm shocked and ashamed beyond words. I'm so sorry to our Aboriginal people. I'm beyond words. To be honest with you, I will be beyond words for a very long time until things change over there. I don't even know what to say. In a place like Australia that seems so beautiful on the outside, the inside has a lot of problems. It is a total mess, and I had to bring this here to you today because I cried my eyes out when I saw what the conditions was like. I have no positive words, and I still honestly do not. If you made it this far, please subscribe. If you need more time, here are 2 videos for you to check out. No pressure. And with that said, don't be too problematic. Be as polite as possible. I'll see you next time.